Why don't you get a job, Spicoli?
What for?
You need money.
All I need are some tasty waves, a cool buzz, and I'm fine.
Did you know that Spicoli's iconic Buick from Fast Times wasn't a movie prop? Reportedly, Sean Penn fought Universal for weeks to drive his actual beat-up surf mobile worth $1,500. Additionally, Penn lived in the car preparing for the role, forgot real marijuana inside during filming, launched California's stoner culture, then watched it burn in a mysterious fire. Totally gnarly, am I right? Now, here are more secrets many never knew of. Number 20. Sean Penn insisted on using his actual personal vehicle against director Amy Heckerling's wishes for something more cinematic. Unbelievably, Sean Penn fought with director Amy Heckerling for 3 whole weeks during pre-production. Why? This happened because Sean refused to drive anything else except his personal 1960 Buick LeSabre convertible, which he'd purchased for $1,500 from a Venice Beach mechanic. Now, that was a lot of cash back then. On the other hand, Heckerling wanted to rent a pristine vintage convertible from a picture car company, arguing that Penn's beat-up Buick looked too genuinely terrible for a theatrical comedy rather than documentary realism. Penn argued passionately that Spicoli would never drive anything remotely nice, insisting his actual car perfectly captured Southern California surf culture, where people drove whatever cheap vehicles they could afford. The Buick had accumulated over 200,000 miles, featured mismatched primer gray paint from amateur bodywork, torn upholstery, and mechanical problems that Penn had learned to manage through constant tinkering. Initially, Universal Studios executives sided with Heckerling, worried that Penn's unreliable personal vehicle would cause production delays if it broke down during filming. Consequently, Penn threatened to quit the production rather than drive a Hollywood prop car, forcing Heckerling to capitulate after realizing his intensity over this detail suggested a deep understanding of the character. Eventually, the studio agreed only after Penn signed liability waivers, accepting financial responsibility for any production delays caused by mechanical failures. Remarkably, this creative standoff illustrated Penn's early reputation for uncompromising artistic vision, regardless of practical consequences. Number 19. The Buick's interior was already decorated with surfboards and drug paraphernalia from Penn's actual lifestyle. Moving on to something that blurred the line between fiction and reality. The Buick's interior was already filled with surfboards, bongs, roach clips, and various drug paraphernalia from Sean Penn's actual Venice Beach lifestyle, requiring minimal prop department intervention to create Spicoli's mobile surf shack. Penn had been living the surfer lifestyle authentically while preparing for the role, spending months hanging out with actual surf rats and adapting to their habits, speech patterns, and material culture. The Buick's back seat permanently held 2 surfboards that Penn used regularly at Venice Beach and Santa Monica, creating authentic wear patterns and ding marks impossible to fake with props. Various smoking devices visible in interior shots were Penn's personal items rather than prop department creations, adding uncomfortable legal concerns for Universal's lawyers worried about depicting actual drug use. Initially, director Amy Heckerling wanted to remove the genuine paraphernalia and replace it with obvious fake props. However, Penn insisted the authentic items were essential to his performance and character credibility. The prop department photographed everything extensively for continuity purposes, essentially documenting Penn's real life rather than creating fictional set dressing. So, this authentic accumulation meant Penn was essentially playing himself with exaggerated personality traits rather than creating a purely fictional character from scratch. The blurred line between Penn's actual lifestyle and Spicoli's character created performance authenticity that audiences instinctively recognized as genuine rather than acted. Number 18. The production used only one Buick. Because Penn refused to allow stunt doubles or backup vehicles.
Seen the new Playboy?
Transportation coordinator Dennis McCarthy wanted to purchase backup Buick LeSabres for stunts and insurance coverage, but Sean Penn absolutely refused to allow any vehicle substitutions, insisting his personal car appear in every single shot. Penn argued that using multiple vehicles would undermine the character's authenticity because audiences would subconsciously recognize different cars, even if they looked identical. This meant the production had zero backup coverage if Penn's Buick suffered mechanical failure or accident damage during the 3-month shooting schedule. Universal's insurance company initially refused to cover production under these terms, calculating that losing the only vehicle would halt filming indefinitely while sourcing and preparing a replacement. Penn personally guaranteed he would maintain the Buick in perfect working condition throughout filming, performing his own mechanical work between shooting days to ensure reliability. Director Amy Heckerling accepted this arrangement nervously, knowing that any breakdown would cost thousands in daily production delays. The single-vehicle approach saved production approximately $8,000 in backup car acquisition and maintenance costs, but created enormous pressure on the transportation crew to prevent any problems. This decision demonstrated Penn's willingness to assume significant personal responsibility rather than compromise his artistic vision, establishing his reputation for intensity that would define his entire career. Remarkably, the Buick survived production without major mechanical failures, validating Penn's confidence in his vehicle knowledge. Number 17. Penn's Buick had no working brakes. During the famous pizza delivery scene he controlled speed with the emergency brake. Sean Penn's Buick suffered complete brake failure the morning of filming the pizza delivery classroom scene, but Penn insisted on shooting anyway, controlling the vehicle's speed exclusively using the emergency brake during approach shots. The brake master cylinder had failed overnight in the parking lot, leaving the vehicle with zero hydraulic braking capability when crew members attempted moving it to the filming location. Transportation coordinator Dennis McCarthy discovered the problem and immediately told director Amy Heckerling they needed to delay filming until repairs could be completed, estimating 4 hours minimum. Penn examined the brake system himself and declared he could safely operate the vehicle using only the emergency brake for the low-speed maneuvering required by the scene's blocking. Heckerling initially refused this suggestion as recklessly dangerous, but Penn demonstrated he could control the Buick adequately using the handbrake in the school's parking lot. The production shut down the planned driving route completely, posted safety personnel at every intersection, and allowed Penn to film using only emergency brake control. Stunt coordinator Buddy Joe Hooker monitored every take nervously, ready to intervene if Penn lost control of the heavy vehicle. The calculated risk paid off with perfect takes, capturing Penn's authentic confidence behind the wheel. This dangerous improvisation demonstrated Penn's commitment to maintaining shooting schedules regardless of safety concerns. Number 16. The Buick's distinctive primer gray paint was Penn's own amateur bodywork from a parking lot accident. The Buick's distinctive mismatched primer gray paint resulted from Sean Penn's own amateur bodywork following a parking lot accident 6 months before filming, and he specifically refused any professional repainting that would improve its appearance. Penn had backed into a concrete post at Venice Beach, damaging the rear quarter panel and trunk lid severely enough to require replacement metalwork. Unable to afford professional body shop services on his struggling actor income, Penn purchased used body panels from a junkyard and installed them himself in a friend's driveway using basic tools. The replacement panels came from different year LeSabres with slightly different body contours, creating visible misalignment that Penn filled with Bondo body filler and sanded roughly. Penn painted the repairs with gray primer from a hardware store, intending to apply matching blue paint later on, but never completed the cosmetic finish. The unfinished primer gray sections covered approximately 40% of the vehicle's surface, creating a distinctive patchwork appearance that screamed amateur repair work. When the prop department suggested professional repainting for visual consistency, Penn argued the mismatched paint perfectly captured Spicoli's economic reality and complete indifference to appearances. Director Amy Heckerling ultimately agreed that the authentic damage history added unspoken character depth that Hollywood perfection couldn't replicate. This genuine repair works demonstrated how actors' real-life struggles sometimes create perfect props that art departments cannot artificially reproduce. Number 15. The Buick's convertible top had multiple tiers that leaked water, requiring constant interior drying. Moving on to environmental chaos that plagued production. The Buick's fabric convertible top had multiple tears and holes from decades of California sun exposure, allowing water to pour into the interior during any rainfall and requiring constant drying to prevent visible moisture damage during filming. Sean Penn had never repaired the top during his ownership because he rarely drove with it raised in Southern California's consistently sunny climate. When production scheduling required filming during California's brief rainy season, the transportation crew discovered water streaming through compromised fabric, soaking seats, and accumulating in floor pans. Prop assistants spent hours after each rain event using shop vacuums, towels, and industrial fans to dry the interior before filming could resume. The accumulated moisture created severe mold problems in the upholstery that required professional remediation, costing $3,000 after director Amy Heckerling noticed visible growth during interior shots. Transportation coordinator Dennis McCarthy attempted patching the tiers with duct tape and waterproof sealants, but the fabric was so deteriorated that repairs proved ineffective against sustained rainfall. Production implemented strict protocols requiring the Buick be covered with tarps whenever parked outdoors and stored in climate-controlled facilities between shooting days. Despite these precautions, minor leaks persisted throughout filming, forcing the prop department to keep portable dehumidifiers running inside the vehicle constantly. The ongoing water problems demonstrated how convertible tops become maintenance nightmares when original materials degrade beyond repair, and replacement fabrics cost more than entire vehicle values. Number 14. Sean Penn lived in the Buick for 2 weeks before filming to become one with Spicoli's world. And get this extreme method acting commitment. Sean Penn actually lived inside his Buick for 2 full weeks immediately before filming began, parking it at Venice Beach and sleeping in the back seat to become one with Spicoli's world through complete immersion. Penn told director Amy Heckerling this was essential preparation for understanding Spicoli's relationship with his vehicle as a mobile home rather than simple transportation. Penn showered at Venice Beach public facilities, ate fast food consumed in the car, and spent entire days surfing, then returned to sleep in the Buick. Director Amy Heckerling initially thought Penn was joking about this preparation technique, but transportation crew members confirmed seeing him sleeping in the vehicle multiple mornings during pre-production weeks. Penn's girlfriend at the time, actress Elizabeth McGovern, later revealed in interviews that she couldn't convince him to stop this behavior, despite concerns about his health and hygiene. The 2-week immersion created authentic wear patterns in the upholstery and accumulated a distinctive lived-in smell that the prop department couldn't have replicated artificially. Co-star Jennifer Jason Leigh mentioned in interviews that getting into Penn's Buick felt like entering his actual living space rather than a film set, enhancing the authenticity of their on-screen chemistry. This extreme method acting approach established Penn's reputation for total character immersion that would define his performances throughout his career. The experience also deepened Penn's emotional attachment to the vehicle beyond simple prop or personal transportation. Number 13. The famous "My Little Bud" line was Penn's improvisation referring to actual marijuana he'd hidden in the car. But here's something that created legal panic. Sean Penn's famous "My Little Bud" line during Mr. Hand's car destruction scene was completely improvised on set and referred to actual marijuana that Penn had genuinely hidden in the Buick's interior during his method-acting preparation period. Penn delivered the line spontaneously during the first take, then broke character laughing at his own audacity, referencing real drugs during a Universal Studios production. Director Amy Heckerling initially thought Penn was simply improvising fictional dialogue, but his genuine nervous laughter suggested something more complicated was happening. After the take, Penn quietly told Heckerling that he'd actually forgotten to remove his personal stash before filming the scene, making the improvised line uncomfortably accurate. Heckerling ordered an immediate production halt, while prop assistants thoroughly searched the vehicle, eventually finding and removing several grams of substance from various hiding spots Penn had created during his 2-week car living period. Universal's legal department was informed of the situation and demanded Penn sign additional documents accepting full responsibility for any drug-related incidents during production. The studio considered firing Penn over this incident, but ultimately decided his performance was too valuable and that removing the drugs had eliminated the immediate legal exposure. Heckerling kept Penn's improvised line in the final cut, despite its origin in actual criminal activity, believing audiences would interpret it as fictional comedy. This incident demonstrated Penn's cavalier attitude towards studio rules and his complete immersion in character regardless of professional boundaries. Number 12. Ray Walston genuinely damaged the Buick during the baseball bat scene, causing $2,300 in repairs. Speaking of destruction, here's an expensive improvisation. Actor Ray Walston, playing Mr. Hand, became so emotionally invested in his character's frustration during the baseball bat destruction scene that he genuinely damaged the Buick beyond what production had planned, causing $2,300 in unexpected repair costs. The screenplay called for Walston to mime aggressive swings near the vehicle without actually making contact, with sound effects and careful editing creating the illusion of damage. During the first take, Walston became so emotionally engaged that he actually struck the Buick's headlights, hood ornament, and front grille with full force, shattering glass and denting metal beyond simple cosmetic repair. Director Amy Heckerling called "cut" immediately, shocked by the genuine destruction, but Walston remained in character, demanding to continue the scene. Sean Penn watched his personal vehicle being damaged and initially became visibly upset, approaching Walston aggressively before the director and crew intervened. After emotions cooled, Penn actually thanked Walston for the authentic destruction, arguing it added genuine battle scars that enhanced the Buick's character history. Universal paid for repairs using production insurance, but the work required 3 days to complete, delaying filming and costing additional money in schedule disruption. The damaged components became permanent features Penn chose to preserve rather than repair completely, incorporating Mr. Hand's rage into the vehicle's accumulated life story. This genuine destruction demonstrated how intense performances sometimes transcend boundaries between fiction and reality. Number 11. The Buick's original 364 V8 engine failed during production and was replaced with a junkyard motor. But here's the kicker that nearly halted filming. The Buick's original 364 cubic inch V8 engine suffered catastrophic failure during week 7 of production, when the crankshaft broke completely, requiring emergency replacement with a junkyard motor that Sean Penn personally selected and helped install. The engine failure occurred during a routine driving shot when violent metal-on-metal grinding suddenly erupted from under the hood, followed by complete loss of power and oil dumping onto the street. Transportation coordinator Dennis McCarthy immediately diagnosed catastrophic internal damage requiring complete engine replacement rather than field repairs. Penn insisted on personally selecting the replacement engine from a Van Nuys junkyard, spending an entire day inspecting various options before choosing a 361 cubic inch V8 from a wrecked 1963 LeSabre. Penn helped mechanics install the replacement engine over a 48-hour marathon session, refusing to leave the garage until his Buick was operational again. This unexpected mechanical crisis cost production approximately $18,000 in delay expenses, replacement parts, and emergency labor charges. Director Amy Heckerling was furious about the delay, but couldn't argue with Penn's dedication to maintaining his personal vehicle rather than accepting a studio-provided replacement. The replacement engine actually ran better than the original worn unit, improving the Buick's reliability for the remaining filming. This mechanical disaster validated Universal executives' initial concerns about using Penn's unreliable personal vehicle for professional production. Number 10. Sean Penn refused to wash the Buick throughout the entire production. Despite Universal's repeated requests, moving on to hygiene battles that created ongoing tension, Sean Penn absolutely refused to allow anyone to wash his Buick throughout the entire 3-month production schedule, despite Universal executives' repeated complaints about the vehicle's increasingly filthy appearance on camera. Penn argued that Spicoli would never wash his car voluntarily, and that accumulated dirt, bird droppings, and beach sand represented authentic character detail that shouldn't be sanitized for Hollywood sensibilities. The Buick collected layers of grime from constant parking at Venice Beach, with salt spray, sand, and organic debris creating a legitimately disgusting exterior that smelled noticeably foul during interior filming. Director Amy Heckerling initially sided with studio requests for at least minimal cleaning to maintain basic visual standards, but Penn threatened to quit if anyone touched his vehicle without permission. The standoff escalated when Universal's president, Ned Tannen, personally visited the set and was horrified by the Buick's condition, demanding immediate cleaning before additional filming. Penn stood his ground, arguing that executives didn't understand teenage characters or authentic Southern California surf culture, where vehicle cleanliness ranked far below surfing priorities. Heckerling eventually convinced Tannen that the filthy Buick actually enhanced Spicoli's characterization, using test audience feedback, praising the film's authentic details as evidence supporting Penn's position. The unwashed vehicle survived the entire production, accumulating environmental damage that prop departments couldn't have replicated artificially. This hygiene battle demonstrated Penn's uncompromising commitment to authenticity, regardless of studio pressure or conventional filmmaking standards. Number 9. The Buick's steering was so loose that Penn had to constantly correct during driving scenes. The Buick's steering mechanism was so completely worn that Penn had to make constant small corrections during every driving scene, creating visible wheel movement that director Amy Heckerling initially thought indicated poor driving technique. The 1960 power steering system had accumulated over 200,000 miles without major service, causing excessive play in the steering box that allowed several inches of wheel rotation before the front wheels actually responded. Transportation coordinator Dennis McCarthy estimated the steering required complete rebuilding, costing approximately $1,200 to meet modern safety standards. But Penn refused any modifications that would alter how the vehicle handled. Penn had adapted to the loose steering during years of ownership, developing unconscious compensation techniques that has kept the Buick tracking reasonably straight despite mechanical deficiencies. During filming, cinematographer Matthew F. Leonetti noticed Penn constantly making tiny steering adjustments and initially thought this indicated nervousness or poor vehicle control. Leonetti eventually realized the constant corrections were necessary, mechanical compensation rather than driving incompetence, actually adding authentic detail, showing someone comfortable with a terrible vehicle. Director Amy Heckerling decided to keep these visible corrections rather than requesting smoother takes, believing they enhanced Spicoli's relationship with his marginally functional transportation. The dangerous steering survived the entire production without causing accidents, validating Penn's confidence in his ability to safely operate fundamentally unsafe machinery through pure familiarity and constant attention. Number 8. Universal offered Penn $50,000 to use a studio car, but he refused every negotiation. Universal Studios offered Sean Penn $50,000 cash to abandon his personal Buick and accept a studio-provided period-appropriate convertible, but Penn refused every negotiation attempt, valuing artistic integrity over significant money. The $50,000 offer represented more than triple Penn's entire acting salary for Fast Times, making it a genuinely substantial financial incentive that most struggling 22-year-old actors would have accepted immediately. Universal executives calculated that spending $50,000 to eliminate vehicle-related production risks would still cost less than potential delays from Penn's unreliable personal car. Penn met with studio business affairs executives multiple times during pre-production, listening to increasingly generous offers, but maintaining his position that using his actual Buick was non-negotiable. Penn explained that accepting studio money to compromise his artistic vision would establish a dangerous precedent where financial incentives could override creative integrity throughout his career. Director Amy Heckerling privately advised Penn to take the money, arguing that audiences wouldn't know the difference between his Buick and a carefully matched studio vehicle. Penn refused this advice, believing that his personal connection to the vehicle would translate into authentic performance that artificial replacements couldn't replicate. This financial sacrifice demonstrated Penn's commitment to artistic authenticity over commercial convenience, establishing the uncompromising reputation that would define his entire career. Universal eventually withdrew the offer and accepted defeat after recognizing Penn's absolute determination. Number 7. The Buick's upholstery was so torn that the prop department had to strategically position actors to hide the worst damage. And speaking of visual challenges, here's creative camera work. The Buick's upholstery was so severely torn and damaged, that the prop department had to strategically position actors during interior scenes to hide the worst deterioration that even Amy Heckerling considered too authentic for theatrical release. The seats featured massive tiers, exposing foam padding and spring coils that Sean Penn had lived with for years without attempting repairs. Prop master Barbara Lorenz initially wanted to repair or replace the upholstery for visual consistency, but Penn refused any modifications to his vehicle's authentic character. Cinematographer Matthew F. Leonetti developed specific camera angles and actor blocking that concealed the most severe damage while maintaining natural-looking compositions. During the pizza delivery scene, Jennifer Jason Leigh had to sit in carefully calculated positions, avoiding exposed springs that would have been visible in wider shots. Wardrobe Department Coordinator Deborah McGuire used clothing placement and actor positioning as additional camouflage for upholstery failures that might distract audiences from dialogue. The creative workarounds added approximately $8,000 to production costs through extended setup times and additional takes required for perfect positioning. Some tiers remained visible in the final footage, with test audiences occasionally mentioning the realistic car interior that actually wasn't an artistic choice, but authentic poverty. This creative camera work demonstrated how filmmakers sometimes must work around genuine authenticity that crosses from believable character detail into distracting damage levels that undermine rather than enhance storytelling. Number 6. Sean Penn kept driving the Buick after filming and was arrested 3 times for vehicle code violations. Sean Penn continued driving his Buick as daily transportation after filming Wrapped and was arrested 3 separate times within 6 months for various vehicle code violations, including expired registration, broken taillights, and excessive exhaust smoke. The arrests occurred during Penn's rising fame period, when police increasingly recognized him from Fast Times promotional materials, creating situations where celebrity status actually increased scrutiny rather than providing privilege. The first arrest in November 1982 involved expired registration tags that Penn had ignored for 7 months while filming and promoting the movie. The second arrest came during a traffic stop when officers noticed one taillight completely missing and the other barely functional, citing Penn for equipment violations requiring immediate repair. The third arrest was the most serious, with a California Highway Patrol stopping Penn on Pacific Coast Highway due to massive blue smoke clouds trailing the Buick from burning oil in the newly installed junkyard engine. Penn's lawyer convinced prosecutors to reduce charges in all 3 cases, arguing that his client's vehicle represented important career memorabilia rather than deliberate law-breaking. These arrests generated publicity that actually helped Fast Times' box office by keeping Spicoli in news cycles months after theatrical release. The legal troubles demonstrated how Penn's commitment to authenticity extended beyond filmmaking into his actual life, refusing to upgrade despite newfound fame and financial success. Number 5. Fast Times created California's entire stoner car culture, with thousands of primer gray Buick tributes built by fans. Fast Times at Ridgemont High single-handedly created California's stoner car culture phenomenon, with teenagers throughout the 1980s deliberately leaving their vehicles in primer gray unfinished states to emulate Spicoli's authentic neglect aesthetic. Custom paint shops reported unprecedented requests to strip existing paint and apply only primer coats, essentially paying professionals to make vehicles look incomplete and amateur. The trend extended beyond Buicks to include virtually any large American convertible or wagon that teenagers could afford, transforming parking lots at Southern California high schools into seas of primer gray vehicles. Automotive journalists noted this represented the first time an unfinished appearance became aspirational rather than embarrassing, fundamentally inverting traditional car culture values, prioritizing polish and completion. The phenomenon spread internationally to Australia and Europe, where American car enthusiasts embraced primer aesthetics as rebellion against conventional restoration standards. Insurance companies initially refused to cover intentionally unfinished vehicles, believing the primer-only finish indicated incomplete repairs rather than deliberate style choices. Several specialized magazines emerged documenting stoner car culture, featuring builds that cost thousands to achieve perfectly imperfect Spicoli-inspired appearances. This grassroots movement demonstrated how authentic screen vehicles could inspire legitimate subcultures when they resonated with audiences seeking alternatives to mainstream automotive perfection. The primer gray aesthetic became synonymous with Southern California surf culture for an entire generation. Number 4. Sean Penn kept the Buick steering wheel and dashboard hula dancer as personal mementos. According to the report, Sean Penn removed and kept both the Buick steering wheel and the dashboard-mounted hula dancer before finally selling the vehicle in 1985, preserving them as personal mementos from his breakthrough role. The steering wheel represented countless hours Penn spent driving, living in, and essentially becoming one with the vehicle during his method-acting preparation and filming. The hula dancer had been installed by the Buick's previous owner years before Penn purchased it, making it an authentic artifact from the car's pre-fame history rather than prop department edition. Penn had the steering wheel professionally restored and mounted on his home office wall alongside the hula dancer, creating a shrine to Spicoli that remained displayed for decades. In subsequent interviews spanning his career, Penn mentioned these items multiple times, calling them his most cherished professional mementos, despite winning multiple Academy Awards and other prestigious recognitions. Friends who visited Penn's various homes reported the steering wheel and hula dancer moved with him through multiple residences, maintaining permanent positions in his personal spaces. Penn occasionally touches the steering wheel before important performances or difficult roles, treating it as a talisman connecting him to the fearless character work that launched his career. This preservation demonstrated how actors maintain physical connections to transformative roles through simple objects, carrying disproportionate emotional significance decades after filming ends and fame arrives. Number 3. The Buick was destroyed in a suspected arson fire at a storage facility in 1988. Surprised? Yes, Sean Penn's original Buick was destroyed in a suspected arson fire at a Van Nuys storage facility in March 1988. 6 years after the film's release, and just months after Penn had finally decided to preserve it permanently. Penn had sold the Buick to a private collector in 1985, after mechanical problems became too expensive to maintain on top of his growing classic car collection. The collector stored it in a shared warehouse facility with other celebrity memorabilia and classic vehicles, planning eventual museum display after completing mechanical restoration. Investigators determined the fire originated in an adjacent storage unit and spread rapidly through the warehouse, consuming over 40 vehicles, including Penn's Buick, before firefighters could control the blaze. The fire wrecked the Buick so completely that only the frame and engine block remained identifiable, with all bodywork, interior components, and distinctive features reduced to melted metal and ash. Police investigated possible insurance fraud, but never filed charges, leaving the fire's origin officially classified as suspicious but unsolved. Penn was reportedly devastated by the news, particularly because he'd removed only the steering wheel and hula dancer while leaving surfboards, original upholstery samples, and other irreplaceable items inside the vehicle. The destruction meant that, unlike most iconic film cars, no authentic Spicoli. Buick survived for future preservation or museum display. Number 2. A perfect recreation, built by a superfan, sold for $78,000. In 2019, speaking of value, here's something current that'll blow your mind. A meticulously accurate Spicoli Buick Recreation, built by California superfan Derek Patterson, sold at a Mecum auction for $78,000 in January 2019, demonstrating the original's extraordinary cultural value despite no longer existing. Patterson spent 6 years and approximately $45,000 sourcing a matching 1960 Buick LeSabre convertible, researching Penn's personal modifications, and recreating every visible detail from freeze-frame film analysis. The recreation included authentic period surfboards, deliberately mismatched primer gray paint, applied to replicate Penn's amateur bodywork, and torn upholstery matching the original's damage patterns. Patterson commissioned professional authentication from Fast Times production designer Dan Lamino, who provided documentation confirming the recreation's accuracy based on original photographs and production notes. The $78,000 sale price shocked automotive analysts who'd estimated $15,000 to $20,000 maximum for a tribute vehicle rather than an original screen-used artifact. Celebrity vehicle auction specialist Dana Meekum noted that this represented the highest price ever paid for a recreation, rather than an authentic screen-used vehicle, demonstrating Fast Time's enduring cultural significance. The sale established that even perfect replicas of destroyed iconic vehicles command premium pricing when they represent beloved characters from culturally significant films. Multiple other Spicoli tribute Buicks have sold for $20,000 to $40,000 subsequently, creating an entire collector market around vehicles that never actually appeared on screen. Number 1. Sean Penn has stated multiple times he wishes he'd never sold the Buick, calling it his biggest career. Regret Sean Penn has publicly stated in numerous interviews over the past 3 decades that selling his Buick is his biggest career regret, surpassing any film role he's turned down or performance he wishes he'd approached differently. Penn first expressed this regret during a 1993 interview, explaining that the Buick represented his transition from unknown actor to recognized talent, and that losing it felt like severing a connection to his artistic foundations. The regret intensified after learning about the 1988 fire destruction, with Penn revealing in interviews that he sometimes dreams about finding the Buick miraculously survived and is waiting for him somewhere. Penn has explained that no Academy Award or professional achievement provides the same emotional connection he felt driving that specific vehicle during Fast Time's filming and his method acting preparation. The actor's repeated public statements about regretting the sale have created mythology around the Buick, exceeding even its actual screen time or narrative importance in the film. Penn reportedly offered the collector substantial money to repurchase the Buick in 1987, just 2 years after selling it, but was refused because the owner had already committed to museum display plans. The fire's destruction a year later made Penn's regret permanent and irreversible, creating a lasting emotional wound that he's referenced consistently across decades. This extraordinary attachment demonstrated how certain vehicles become inseparable from actors' identities and self-conceptions in ways that professional success cannot replicate or replace. From a $1,500 surf mobile to a $78,000 tribute legend, Spicoli's Buick proved that authenticity beats perfection every gnarly time. That primer gray land yacht became teen cinema's ultimate reality check, surviving Penn's method madness, launching stoner car culture, and haunting its creator with permanent regret after vanishing in flames.